Ciao, my little tortellini. It's Carla, and I'm here again today in my kitchen making fresh tortelli with spinach and cheese from the pasta book. Making fresh pasta is a knack. It takes a lot of trust and a lot of skill and the wisdom of like a million Italian old ladies to get you there. Today we are gonna go and really give this cookbook a run for its money because I'm making the fresh pasta dough that I've never made before and a filled pasta that I've also never made before, but we trust Fred. In Fred we trust. So I chose this pasta, this fresh pasta, because I wanted a little bit of a challenge and also because it followed one of my golden rules of recipe writing and recipe developing. If one part of the recipe is like difficult or it's a new technique or it's a little time consuming, then I would always choose to make the ingredients like few and simple. So this totally fits the bill. The pasta making process is a process, but the filling is literally just spinach, ricotta, eggs, and some parm. You don't even blanch the spinach for the filling. And then if we're gonna get into it and make something special, it's really gonna be about making a special dough by hand. The instructions for which are on a completely different page. That's the trust and faith that we are entering into this with. I did go back and look at some other dough ratios just to kind of ground myself and get familiar with the method, because one of the things in Fred's recipe is that he calls for adding some tepid water, but he doesn't tell you exactly how much or even give a ballpark. Something like that for me, who has really not made fresh pasta that many times, I kind of want to know like how much liquid we're working with. We're going with a 2-to-1 flour to egg by weight ratio. So I have 240 grams of flour, which for me is my 2 cups. And then I'm gonna weigh the eggs before I add them. But the first step, which is so funny, and one of the reasons why I love this book so much is because Fred's really funny and has really funny descriptions. He says, form what looks like a cross between Mount Etna and a lunar crater. So I think Mount Etna is like more tall and peaked like a volcano, and a lunar crater is more like wide and flat. So I think that's what he's saying. Essentially, you need to make a well. And if you want to skip straight to like the filled pasta part of this, you could buy sheets of lasagna or sheets of fresh pasta. Okay, so I'm making my crater. And one thing that I've learned from doing this in the past is like you don't want too much flour on the surface of your board. I could have done it, I guess, on the marble, but wood just feels more like old lady, nonna, Italian energy. So I'm looking for 120 grams of whole egg. Different pasta recipes are gonna say for an egg dough, whole egg or just egg yolks, or sometimes a combination. Wow, one egg, we looked this up the other day. A large egg should weigh 57 grams and it's like teeter-tottering, but back and forth between 56 and 57. Probably if I got the rest of the egg white, it would just, yep, that's crazy. How do the chickens know? Okay, that's 112. I'm gonna do something that is a little fussy, but we're just trying to, we wanna stick the landing today. So I'm gonna beat this last egg. And I need 8 more grams. So now your liquid, sometimes it's just water, this time it's whole eggs. The reason you use an egg dough for filled pasta is because it'll give it more elasticity because of the fat. These are gonna go right in. And you could beat them all together in the bowl if you want to. And Fred says that the middle is called a fontana. Yeah, the hollowed section is la fontana. I bet it means fountain, but what do I know? I'm just a girl who grew up on the Upper West Side, not speaking Italian, really at all. Okay, so we're in an egg fountain. So now I'm beating the egg together in the middle. It's in its little bowl. And then what you do is you start working. Some people do it with a fork, some people use their fingers, and just working around the edges of Mount Etna. I want to go to Naples and I want to go to Sicily. I'm just putting it out there. We need to manifest, we need to visualize. So now I have something in the center that's like rubber cement sort of thickness. Yeah, it's very pasty, it's very thick. It's definitely not gonna run anywhere. You can switch to your fingers. So at this point, you kind of have a little bit more safety to go a little bit more aggressively to bring this together into something that could eventually be described as dough. It does look like a lot of flour. The key thing will be getting the dough to a place where it feels right, even if that means there's a lot of flour left on the board. So now, like, this is where I am. Obviously, there's these more coated ones, and this happens, and that's okay. Once a clump of flour is like completely surrounded in this like wet, like partially hydrated cakey thing, these are never really gonna like make friends with the other guy. They'll form lumps in the finished dough. I am going to use a bench scraper. I mean, the great thing now is that you can go online and watch like videos of people who have been doing this for their entire lives, like doing it, and you can really watch. And for me, like, these illustrations are great and everything, but sometimes I could read it a million times and it's just not gonna click. These things, these are no good. This is gonna end up being our bench flour. We will need that. So let's just do a little verbal check here. Soft, sticky ball, take it into your hands, firm the ball a little bit, and place it to one side. Now start to knead the dough. If you think the ball is too soft or sticky, dust it with a bit of flour from the side of the working surface. But if the pasta is too dry, it is useless. Wow, way to bottom line it. So I think what he's saying is err on the side of sticky than dry and cakey. The same rules for skincare. Better to be over moisturized than dry. So now it is sticky. She's sticky. So maybe I'll just even like just flour my hands and we go again. So this is supposed to take 10 minutes. If it's still sticky after 10 minutes, you have to knead in a little more flour. And then what we're looking for is little bubbles forming on the surface of the dough. From my other book research, like, you want something that's like shiny and smooth and no longer has like a coarse texture when you pull it apart like that. So that's what I'm going for. Felt a lot of breezes rustling through my hair as I work the dough back and forth, and it feels really good. It feels pretty shiny and like smooth. There's a little texture here, but it's gonna be like very stretchy and more tight right now because the gluten is so worked. The thing I'm not seeing is this bubbles on the surface, which frankly I'm fascinated by, and I really do want to see it. So I'm gonna go for 3 more minutes. We'll check back in. So now it's been 13 minutes. I love how the dough feels. I love how the dough looks. I am not seeing any tiny bubbles. It feels like it really came together. It's not dry, but it has like some slight moisture to it. It presses in a pleasing way, and pretty smooth, and I'm not seeing like all that roughness. I feel good, I feel elastic, I feel smooth, I feel properly hydrated. I feel like the right amount of time has passed. I feel that I have something that could be a ball. I'm also a really big believer in like writing in your cookbooks. If I was gonna use Fred's book again, I would say smooth and elastic, no air bubbles. All right, wrapping, resting, filling. So this filling is interesting to me because, one, it's a large volume of spinach. It's a pound. Ideally, you would be using mature spinach, right? That have the big leaves that just aren't baby spinach packed in those clamshells, but it's really hard to find. It's like a weird phenomenon that has taken over the United States of America, where it's baby spinach and it's baby cress and it's baby carrots that aren't even baby carrots. So we just got to work with what we're given. The other thing that is interesting is, unlike some other fillings that I looked at, you don't blanch the spinach at all or squeeze it out or do anything. So it's just been rinsed and washed and then chopped. It just makes me think, like, I've got to chop it pretty fine. Like, obviously can't like pipe this into a tortelli. I feel like I work in a health food store. This is what every health food store smells like. You know what? Probably mezzaluna. That's the secret, the mezzaluna. So glad I said mezzaluna because then it made me think, be the mezzaluna. Be the mezzaluna that you want to see. Woke up in bed and from the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition. Got to pay my life. That's a hard karaoke song. All right, I'm done. Note to self, I do think cleaning the spinach, blanching it really quickly, cooling it, and squeezing it would make it so much easier to chop it, and it would take the same amount of time or less time if you don't have 2 blades like I did. So I'm just putting this into a big bowl for mixing, but everything's quite wet. So I'm just taking one of my like flour sack towels and gonna squeeze out some of that liquid. And this could be, you know, I don't know. We used, wow, now we're really at the juice bar. Charge like 20 bucks for a chlorophyll shot. All right. This looks gorgeous though. Look, in the time it took to make this tortelli, I invented a handmade mezzaluna, which is just me. And then I also opened a juice bar, and now we have like artisanal plant dyed fabrics. Couple eggs. Uno, due. Uove. Ricotta. Just lovely, fresh ricotta. I was kind of expecting to see like some nutmeg, which I'm not a big fan of, or white pepper. You see that a lot in this kind of filling. This is parm, blender parm, grated parm. There is a good amount of salt here, right, from the parm, but there's a lot of spinach and ricotta, which is not. So I'm still salting. So I think my concern here is that it's gonna be very vegetal proportionally, but we're gonna taste it and we're gonna see. I do think you should taste the filling. It has raw egg in it, so do the right thing for you. It's okay. It needs more salt. This would be a nice filling for cannelloni or lasagna. No, it tastes good. This is my mom's pasta machine. I don't own one. The whole vibe of the pasta machine is cutters and rollers. You put this little thingamajobber in here, you turn, the rollers turn, and then you go thinner and thinner with every round. It like re-kneads the pasta dough as it stretches it. I've got that sifted flour from making the dough. I'm just gonna lightly flour and then our dough that's been resting. If this were a full batch, I would cut it into 4 pieces, but it's more like a half batch to start. So I'm just gonna cut it in half. And the first thing I'm gonna do is just kind of like knead it, warm it up a little bit, and get it roughly into like an oval shape. So you just want it flat enough to kind of fit through the widest setting. So stretching and getting thinner. The first pass, you want to do a few times just to get the dough like soft and pliable before trying to get it any thinner. So I'm folding it into thirds and then not taking a folded side, but taking this open side, and I'm going to feed the open side in. And if the dough starts to stick to the rollers or doesn't want to come through the rollers or feels tacky, then I will flour it a little bit. But really what you should be able to do is just have enough flour on your board to kind of, as it's coming out, it's dragging through the flour. You know, very much like a pastry dough, it's starting to feel a little less craggy on the edges and just more homogeneous and getting shiny again. So I'm gonna do it into thirds one more time and press it. And then I'm still on the same widest setting. You don't wanna pull on it as it's going through because it'll stretch it too much. So you're just kind of like have your other hand underneath just to guide it. So I don't need to fold it in thirds because it has a narrow end already. I stop down one stopper. And now you can tell it's like not really as like stiff anymore. So even as it folds onto itself underneath, it could stick slightly. So I don't want it to pile up. And then once it's long enough to flop over the back of the machine without stretching or pulling, then, you know, I'm just like supporting it with this hand and pulling it through as it comes out. Okay, so this is about as long as like I'm comfortable handling. So I'm gonna cut this in half. Whoopsie. This guy over here to just hang out. Step down one more. That's really nice. That might be as thin as it needs to be. So you can see my fingers through the dough. It's quite thin. So wait, let's see what Fred says. 1/12 to 1/16 of an inch thick. Some pasta cooks think it is necessary to see your hand through the pasta, but you need not worry about this sort of thing. If it is as thin as you want it, smooth and elastic, then you've done good work. This feels nice to me. I mean, it's gonna get folded over, so it'll be doubly thick. So maybe what I'll do is just on that same setting, we'll just go through one more time. I don't know why. It just feels good to me. Ooh, it's very nice. It's elastic. It doesn't feel like it's gonna tear. It feels hydrated, but not sticky. I think we did a good thing, guys. Okay, so that's Gorgina, Bubadina. I'm gonna do 2 sheets and put one on top of the other. I think it's a little faster. And this is the cutter that I'm gonna be using. Tortelli, I was kind of confused because we've all heard of tortellini, but these are tortelli. I'm just doing this as a guide for myself. I have very bad spatial awareness. So I need to leave like 3 inches between each mound. And I also need to be mindful of how much filling I'm putting inside. So Fred's book just says some filling, and Missy Robbins' book says the diameter of a quarter, which is like very small. So I'm gonna have a lot of extra filling. So I'm just kind of getting a vibe check. Maybe I'll just push that down. What you don't want is, obviously, like from making lots of filled types of doughs, if you have too much, it's gonna squeeze out and it's gonna jeopardize the integrity of the seal. So I think that's like it. So then you put the other sheet over, you press around the filling. You want to not have air bubbles. I think you're supposed to push from the filling out. And then do the ring and the thing. And make sure that your edges are really sealed. Because nobody says to add water or anything, or an egg wash. So that's cute. And I thought a tortelli was like a big tortellini, but that's wrong. A big tortellini is a tortelloni. A tortelli is kind of synonymous with ravioli, and from reading Missy's book, they can be any shape. So you can kind of do whatever you want, and you can call any of them tortelli, which I love. I don't know, you're really free then. It turns out I didn't need to chop that much spinach. You live and you learn. Resisting the urge to put more filling in, because I want there to be more filling. It just looks like such a small amount, and I have a giant bowl. Okay. And then leave some space. And do that. And now I'm gonna try to be better and pinch around my filling. It's a lot easier to do assembly. That one sucks. This one's cute. First one was bad. Second one was pretty bad. Third one was kind of iconic and beautiful. And the fourth one is stunning. We now have 5 tortelli, and that's half of the pasta. We're back at Carla's famous tortelli restaurant, where there are 9 tortelli every day, and each order is 3 tortelli, so 3 people can eat here as an appetizer. And I do not have any main courses, but I'm gonna make it really delicious. So I have my boiling water. We're gonna get these tortelli going. Recipe says they need 12 to 15. So I want to get them in the water. And then for the sauce, like, we're going to keep it right straight down the middle. Butter, sage, some grated parm. It's going to be really lovely. While the tortelli are in the water, I'm going to make a very simple brown butter and sage sauce. So for 9 tortelli, I'm going to do, I don't know, let's do half a stick of butter. Let's do the bigger half of the stick of butter. This is just regular unsalted butter going in to the induction, which has been on a couple previous videos. When this starts to foam and sizzle, that's when I'll add the sage. I like the flavor of sage. I don't really want to bite into a sage leaf. 4 sage, 5. 4 is weird. I'm just nudging the heat up a tiny bit to get this foaming happening. It's good to brown butter slowly, but like not that slowly. So yeah, I want to see these nice bubbles. Gonna toast a little pepper in there. Salt the butter. Tortelli are still tortelliing. And wait for that to brown. The butter is changing. It's like that really beautiful kind of light brown caramel color. So I know it's quite hot. I'm gonna add these and they will do a little sizzle and fry in that butter. Gorge, so pretty. So I'm just gonna let them continue to fry in there while the butter continues to take on color. I don't know if this is done, so I took the one that had a compromised edge, and that'll be the taster. Feels pretty tender. I was afraid the filling was gonna get like super liquidy. It did shrink down a good amount. That's quite nice. I think they're ready to come out. Just make sure my butter is good. Grab my parm. So now very gently, just gonna slide these in. I'm really not even tossing. I'm gonna kill the power. And then I'm gonna gradually add some parm and let it melt. You could also do this if you had the sauce and you had a nice big warm bowl where you're just really just swirling them around in the bowl. I get it now. They're special. They're exquisite. They're rare. They're one of a kind. They're not mass produced. They're handmade. They are really beautiful and they're really special. And so am I. Just kidding. I meant to say, and so are you. Aww. You know, oftentimes when you do watch videos of the nonas making their pastas together, you know, there's often like three people in the kitchen all working together. And if you do it that way, where you're filling and stamping and cutting out, it feels communal and fun and less work for everybody. This isn't something I ever order in a restaurant because you don't get very much, and I don't think it's the right setting. Like, I think you should have something like this at home where you can like really appreciate it and where your work pays off or you're impressing a lot of other people. Because they're gonna be gone in a flash. The Authentic Pasta Book by Fred Plotkin is an excellent book. I recommend it. I will be adapting this recipe a bit before I publish it because there's things that I learned along the way. But other than that, it's pretty great. It's very delicious and it was fun.
Has anyone ever done this before?
Yeah, no, yes, people do this. Benihana, right? Tim, I feel like we should get slow-mo.